you. I appreciate it. Um, so yeah, anyhow, um, we went up to a town in northern Israel, but not too close to the border. In fact, this is one of the only towns in all of Israel that has not had a single air raid siren go off in the last 40 days. So that tells you something. It's at the base of Mount Carmel. And why we went there is to meet with the community of Nahal Oz. Now, Nahal Oz is one of the towns that was on that's on the border with Gaza, and it's one of the towns on the border with Gaza, and so
It's telling me
and
my
it
speaker's not
was one
working.
of the
Could you
folks.
please come up and check the
Here, let me mute some folks. Um, and so anyhow, with with Nahal Oz, it was one of the cities that was attacked by Hamas on October 7th. And um, they, let me get my notes from the folks I talked to. Here we go. Um, and so is the city in Israel that is closest to Gaza City. It is 1 mile away from Gaza City, like not just Gaza, but like Gaza City, and it is the most rocketed place in the country. Here in Tel Aviv, I need to be at all times within 90 seconds of a bomb shelter, but in Nahal Oz, you need to be 7 seconds. That is how long you have from the time the rocket is shot to when it hits Nahal Oz. You have 7 seconds after the air raid siren goes off to get into a bomb shelter. And uh, they had a fairly traumatic experience before all this. The last major war between Israel and Hamas was in 2014. And on the last day of the war, they thought it was safe to go back. And then a barrage of rockets on the very last day of the war hit this town. And it unfortunately, sadly, a 4-year-old Israeli boy was killed when that happened. And you would think, and so a lot of young families after that said, we're moving out of this town because, we now had to explain to our kindergartner why Aton did not come to school anymore. And so, with that, other folks in Israel said, we can't let these communities die. And this one man I talked to and his wife were a young couple. They moved there to try and build it back up. And so the South experienced a population boom in 2015. But the town of Nahal Oz has had a massacre before. In 1956, Nahal Oz was on, unfortunately, the receiving end of another terrorist attack. And Moshe Dayan, the great general, gave a speech that became known as the Nahal Oz eulogy, where he talked about how Israel failed this town, that it was the job of the Israeli army to protect it, and that this was Israel. And don't blame the terrorists for this massacre. At the end of the day, that is what terrorists do. We know that's what they do. Blame us. And this is very much being now. This speech is being shared throughout Israel again, because people are saying we Hamas did what we expect Hamas to do. The Israeli government failed us, and the army failed us, and this is we were failed. And what the people of Nahal Oz were telling me is, uh, oh hi, oh great, we have a bunch of middle schoolers listening and watching us. That's totally fine. I won't be sharing gory details like the last couple of days. But with Nahal Oz, uh, hi all the students at Roland Hall. Nahal Oz, uh, they um, they said it was really uh, they had a contract with the state of Israel, and that contract was that they were going to be on the border of Gaza with Gaza which is internationally recognized. This is not a settlement. This is internationally recognized as sovereign Israel since 1948, and that Israel would that people would live in every spot of Israel and protect the border in that way. But Israel's side of the contract was making sure that uh, that those people were safe living there. And they said, we fulfilled our part of the contract, but Israel didn't fulfill theirs. And they pointed out, again, this speaks to what Hamas is that Hamas could have only attacked military institutions. Had Hamas only attacked military bases and institutions, and there's a military base on Nahal Oz, they would have killed about 300 soldiers, which is what they did kill, and they would have kidnapped 20 soldiers. But they didn't do that. They went and purposefully targeted civilians. And this man who was talking to me said that he has a baby stroller. He has a 1 year old and a 3 year old. And he has a baby stroller outside his house. And they shot out his windows and tried to get into his house. But then the people at his kibbutz who were in charge of security for the kibbutz, like the volunteers who are supposed to have been trained in this, what to do, they started firing at those folks. And there was another terrorist who had an RPG pointed at the house next door that also has a stroller in front of it, and they shot the terrorist right as he had was about to shoot the RPG. And a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks before the massacre, um, so anyways, Hamas could have done this, and it would have been the greatest act ever of Palestinian resistance, the biggest victory in the history of the Palestinian liberation movement, still, and by far. And yet they chose to massacre civilians as well and kidnap civilians as well. And uh, in a nearby kibbutz that didn't have any protection, kibbutz near Oz, Hamas came and massacred people, and they were there for 5 hours, and not a single, and then left without ever encountering a single soldier. That is the failure that occurred here. And as I talked about yesterday, where were the soldiers? 70% of the military was in the West Bank protecting a settler party for Simchat Torah. That Itamar Ben Gavir and Smotrich, the very far right wing leaders of Israel, had in the West Bank, in Judea, Samaria, whatever you call it, as as a party celebration and to be provocative. And 70% of the military was there. And a couple weeks before the massacre, these volunteer security folks, whose job really it was to hold off the terrorists for 2 minutes, and the army would respond within 2 minutes, was the agreement with the Israeli government. They fought them for hours. And a couple weeks beforehand, they had a drill where they had a drill where instead of going to the shooting range, they had a drill where they said, let's do a simulation of as if the terrorists were coming into our kibbutz. And when the military heard this, a military commander yelled at them and was furious and said, when you do stuff like that, it undermines us and makes it look like we're incompetent. That will never be necessary. Why would you do that? Um, but these people plan to return to the border because they think that being there is the most important Zionist mission that they could have, and that this happened to be the biggest failure in the history of the Israeli government. And they hope that they'll learn from this. So the army did show up, but not 2 minutes after the massacre started. 7 hours, 7 hours after the massacre happened, and no ambulances came or anything like that. The army showed up, and they showed up to ask the volunteers, "Do you have any extra ammunition? Because we've run out." And what you're seeing now in Israel is a lot of Israelis walking around with pistols. And that was something you've never seen in Israel before, and that's disturbing to a lot of Israelis. Um, but we saw that in places where the terrorists got resistance, the terrorist response to the resistance was very mediocre. They didn't do very well. It was the lack of resistance in some places because these folks counted on the army where they had more success. So we asked him, what does victory look like in this war? And he said, victory for me is if on October 7th of next year, I can drop my daughters off in school in Nahal Oz and not be afraid um, uh, when I go to work. Um, we also met with a couple of bereaved families today. Uh, oh, we before that we met with a bunch of reform rabbis in Israel who are doing amazing work. In Israel, what they've decided to do is instead of having big synagogues, they'll put a reform rabbi in charge of a region. And so Nahal Oz actually had those southern border towns had a rabbi who had been in those towns, and she'd been very effective in like building community there and stuff. And um, the reform movement now is doing all of these things for the folks who've been displaced, making sure that they have resources, make sure they're getting psychological counseling, et cetera, et cetera. It's really inspiring to see. Uh, and they thanked me, by the way, at one point. Somebody came up to me and said, "I want to thank you." And I said, "For what?" And she said, um, "You didn't ask me how I'm doing." People always come up to me, and so she thanked me for being rude. But she said people always say, "Think, how are you doing?" She said, "Thanks for not asking me how are you doing today. Like we're not doing well." Um, we then met with again a reform rabbi who his nephew was killed a few days ago in the war, and heard about her nephew and console that family. And um, we also then met with a really interesting guy, and I called the Utah Muslim Civic League. His name was Mohammed Dasharwe, and he had a conversation with us that was a little tough to hear. He's a leading Israeli Arab figure, and um, he's focused on the upward mobility of Israel's Arab population. And he, like the folks in the Hall O, said on October 7th, Israel broke its contract with the Jews. For us, the Declaration of Independence was signed on May 14th, 1948, and Israel broke that contract on May 15th. And what he talked about was, and he had actual statistics to back this up. He talked about how 20 years ago, how in the Declaration of Independence, all people were promised political and societal equality. And he said that they don't have that in the Arab community. Yes, Arabs can vote, pay taxes, all those things. But that with the Arab population there, 20 years ago, only 3.5% of college students in Israel were Arab. Today, that number is 21%. Now, why is that the case? Especially when 27 anti-Arab laws, as they see it, have been passed in Israel over the Netanyahu administration. And what he said about that was that um, he did civic work where they saw that uh, Israeli Jews could take like the equivalent of the SATs in Hebrew. I, as an American Jew, if I wanted to go to Israeli college, could take in English. You could take in whatever your first language was, but you couldn't take in Arabic. They said, "Well, you were born in Israel. You have to take in Hebrew." And even though these kids had learned school in Arabic, and when he showed that they could take the test in Arabic, he gave an example, the average scores were 27% higher. And also when tests were given um, uh, during Ramadan, after 1 p.m., uh, Arab students scored 22% lower on their test scores. And so he took this to Israel and said, this is not societal equality. If it's before 1 p.m., if the test is before 1 p.m., then they should be able to take it no problem. If it's after 1 p.m., they should be able to get a deferment to another date or after they've eaten that night. And so it's and he gave so many other examples of things that he's doing to bring Arabs and Jews together through education. And like one of the programs he started with 16 people uh, is now grown to 2,500, where he sends, they don't have busing where you can bus kids from one town to another in Israel, but he's busing teachers, 2,000 Arab teachers into Jewish towns to be teachers in the Jewish schools, and 500 Jewish teachers into Arab towns to be in Arab schools, and having them learn from each other this way and interact this way with each other. And as a result of this man's efforts, these are the statistics today. 24% of doctors in Israel are Arabs, 36% of dentists, 44% of the country's nurses, and 55% of pharmacists. And he pointed out a lot of areas of inequality, that if I got married to a Christian woman, she would be entitled to Israeli citizenship for being married to me. But if an Israeli Arab were to marry a Palestinian who is not an Israeli citizen, she can't get citizenship. And there's context, of course, to that, but it's really challenging. But he's pointing out those challenges. And what I he said a lot of things that were troubling to me. I'll be honest. We have very different narratives, but um, share some other statistics, such as that 85% of Arabs in Israel opposed Hamas's actions, only 2% supported. 70% of Arabs in Israel are of Israeli Arab citizens are aligning with Israel in this war, and 13%, 70% feel more Israeli than they did before this war, and 13% feel less Israeli than before. He did talk about also how 1,000 Arabs were fired from their jobs and 250 arrested for social media posts, and only 18 of those posts were found to be actually against the law. Others were uh, maybe not seen as pro-Israel, but they were not violations of the law. So how he's advocating for those people. And in his little village, they have now they're hosting 260 displaced persons a day, because he sees that as an opportunity for Jews and Muslims to come together. And that is coming at a cost to his organization of $8,000 a day. And so we'll be making a donation to that to help offset that from my discretionary fund. And he also talked about too, this is something that we don't think about. Nine of the hostages right now, 9 of them are Arabs, Israeli Arabs who are hostage. And forgives 20 something Arabs were killed by Hamas, including this man's nephew. And what happened with his nephew was his nephew was an ambulance driver who was driving to the massacre. And all the other ambulances start radioing each other and saying, pull back, there's too many Hamas, like we're getting killed, pull back. And he said, no, I'm not pulling back. I am going to I speak Arabic. Maybe Hamas will spare me and I can save people. And he drove, and Hamas killed him. Likewise, there were a number of Bedouins who have pickup trucks, and they started driving to the music festival to grab Israelis, put them in their pickup trucks, and drive them to safety, and then going back and doing that time and again until they were murdered by Hamas as well. Um, and he talked about what we could do. What Israel needs to do is create a breathing space for Arabs, like something that Arabs talk a lot about. He said, we can't be saying from the river to the sea. That's genocidal. That's anti-Semitic. And it's fine that Israel is a Jewish state, I just need to have a place here too. So he said, everybody makes a big deal about like a Jewish flag and all that stuff. It doesn't bother me too much. But wouldn't it be nice if maybe in the corner of that flag, taking up this much space, was an olive branch that just symbolizes how other people live here too? And it was really thoughtful. And I actually talked to uh, uh, some folks in the Utah Muslim Civic League when was done talking with them and said, we got to bring this guy to Utah. He has some really tough truths that my community needs to hear about the inequality of Arabs in Israel and how they're treated, and destroying that myth that everybody's equal. And he has some real truths that the Muslim community of our state needs to hear too. So, we could all learn from him. Uh, and then following him, our final speaker of the day was a retired lieutenant colonel who was talking to us about the situation on the north and how Hezbollah had trained to do the stuff that Hamas did, and also the capabilities of Hezbollah's weapons and how they have been firing hundreds of rockets into Israel since this war began, and feels that there is an open war up there, um, and showed how Iran was behind all the planning. Anything Hezbollah does, it comes from Iran. And she showed pictures that she took from her house on the border, uh, where she was looking at Hezbollah militants in the eye, 20 feet away. Um, so yeah. So and she showed us a film that Hezbollah has where they've laid out their plans to invade Israel, much like Hamas did. But they're much stronger, more powerful than Hamas, more capable than Hamas. Finally, just update here today. There was a terrorist attack in Israel today outside of Jerusalem. 6 people were injured, one critically, by a terrorist who opened fire on passing cars. And then Also, no rockets that I've experienced today, at least. A couple of Hezbollah terrorists were killed today. Uh, 2 or 3 Israeli soldiers were killed in Gaza today, and sadly, the body of one of the hostages was found in next to the Shifa Hospital, in a building adjacent to the Shifa Hospital in Gaza. So yeah. Any questions before I invite a gentleman from Sderot to come talk with us? Oh, and one other thing too. In Utah news, in case you didn't hear Andrew Gruber send this to me, yesterday the Utah State Legislature passed a bill by a vote of 62-3 in support of Israel in this war. So, really, wow. I don't know any other state out there that would have a 62-3 vote on this. And even the 3 representatives who voted against it, who were all Democrats, they said, I'm not trying to hate on Democrats, that, by the way, the Israelis have been singing Joe Biden's praise so much here. It's insane. But the 3 Utah Democrats said, made statements of how they're voting against this because they don't support what's happening to the Palestinian civilians, but they want to make it clear that anti-Semitism has no place in our communities. So appreciate them at least making that, even if I don't agree with their vote. Any questions for me before I invite this gentleman over? Um, let's see. Um, uh, all right. And by the way, just the thing I've been hearing from Israelis so much, which has really been gratifying, is thank you for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming 1,000 times over. So, and how much it means to them that we're here, that they don't feel as alone, and how touching that is. All right. Well, if there aren't any questions, then
Laura,
yeah.
Laura asked you one, Rabbi Sam.
Oh, in the chat.
in the chat. Yep.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Rabbi, did this Arab gentleman have any idea of the statistics from the Palestinian Authority, Ramallah area A, B, as to the support of Israel versus support of Hamas? Um, so it appears to be opposite, direct opposite of the numbers you quote from Israeli Arabs. I don't know. He didn't talk about that. The numbers though did include the Palestinians of East Jerusalem who don't have Israeli citizenship, but are kind of have like a green card status. Um, he did say, that he wondered if the numbers were a little skewed because they were like, oh, I'm worried to say something anti-Israel and will I get in trouble for that? But uh, yeah, he didn't give the numbers from, I mean, the truth of the matter is too, um, you never hear dissent within Palestinian society because bad things happen if you dissent or people are complicit. And that was one of the things we talked about too, is we, everybody is talking about the Palestinian civilian casualties in this, but everybody's talking about the Palestinian civilian casualties, but who were the attackers? Was it just Hamas? Because if you look at the videos of the people coming in to Israel, um, coming into Israel and invading, some of them were Hamas militants in Hamas garb, and lots of others were just civilians, like 45-year-old men with beer guts and stuff like that, and t-shirts running in with weapons and stuff. So it's a little hard to know who's just a civilian and who is a terrorist. Yeah. Any other questions or? Yeah, I'll invite this gentleman over then. He told me just a second. Um, okay, Moshe is on the phone, but I found this nice young lady. Moshe will come over in a little bit.
Hello.
Let's see.
My name is Adas.
Adas. And over your shoulder, so that they can hear both of us. I have a bad speaker. Adasa, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 15.
15 years old. And you are from where in Israel?
From Sderot.
Sderot. Can you guys hear both of us okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay. So, sorry for that light right there. But we'll try and what's up? Okay, yeah, that's a little better. So if you are tell us a little bit about your town, Sderot.
It's a very nice town. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone very friendly with everyone. It's like a big family in one city.
And also from Sderot. Uh, this is from Salt Lake City, Utah, Jewish. Sderot. And how long have you lived in Sderot? 30 years. Why did you move to Sderot? Why did you continue to live in Sderot? You speak a little louder. Sderot has been known for being, it's very close to the border with Um,
Sorry, Sam, the sound is not as
okay,
good.
thanks for telling me. So here, I'll just turn it back and forth. Uh, so Sderot is a town that has um received a lot of rockets for a long time. Yes, I am. Moshe's done talking to me. For a long time. Here though. So that's you said you're 15 years old, and really the rocket started on 2008, and the rockets really started kind of around 2006. So you've been in school,
Yes.
and so this is something you've experienced your whole life, really.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
About the rockets, it's kind of become like regular daily on a regular daily. It's almost every day. It's because we are very close to Gaza. There's always rockets, always. So it's never actually safe to be alone in a place without a safe place.
And what happened? So, okay, would you mind me asking what happened on October 7th in Sderot?
It was like every normal Saturday until it was the rockets, and we didn't really scared of that kid. We used to it, and then we heard there's איך אומרים מחבלים?
Um,
Terrorists.
yeah,
There is a terrorist go into our town and they start shoot people. So that was the most scary part.
did you hear it?
Yes.
Did you hear it?
No.
What
We really freaked out and we locked all the doors on all the windows. We didn't leave the house for like the whole Saturday until we heard there was no more terrorists.
how long did you stay in your house? So, like you say, all Saturday. How many hours
Yes.
was it until the Israeli army?
Like the whole until Sunday.
And police station that was taken over. Back their own police station. That was, if you mind me asking, know anybody who was killed or anything like that? The hostage?
Our neighbors is the child small.
That's-
25, I think.
Um, when did you? So we're in Tel Aviv. You are living in this hotel right now, like, and been here for a month.
I'm sorry, Sam, we can't hear you well. We can hear
I'm
Adas,
sorry,
but not
Metal.
you.
Tagis, bit Knesset to buy me a better better computer. Anyway,
Okay.
um, so sorry, yeah, my microphone had that like right in front. So could you hear Adas though?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's more important. So, anyways, so what day did you leave Sderot?
About a week and a half after the war started.
What? How much stuff could you bring up here?
Not much. But close for like 4 days because we didn't thought we stay here that long. And we went to the mall buy stuff, but it's hard to stay here with 4 days stuff.
What what do you plan to go back to Sderot? What do you think about returning to Sderot and about the future for you?
One hand, I really want to go back home, but I'm very scared because of everything that happened. I feel like my home is not safe.
And what message would you have to American Jews that you want them to know right now, or ways that they can help you or help Sderot?
If you can spread on the internet good things about Israel, because everyone thinks we're the terrorists, and pray for us.
And yeah, what do you all have any questions for this pretty remarkable young woman sitting next to me? Any questions for her?
If I may,
You may.
I'll turn on my camera. So,
Shalom.
שלום הדס, ישראלית מיעוטה. קודם כל זה מאוד מאוד מרגש אותי לשמוע אותך. אני מאוד רגישה בימים אלה. Sorry, I will switch to English. What do you do during the day? Do you have any school? Are you going on Zoom or?
Yes,
what
we
are you
have
doing?
Zoom, but until couple months, I did absolutely nothing in the hotel. We were bored here.
Yeah, and obviously the Zoom is like not the same. Okay, I just wanted to send a big hug and to know that, to let you know that we are with you.
I was saying yesterday, because I think Israelis are seeing all the bad things, but what I said in our home state of Utah yesterday, our government passed a bill, a resolution supporting Israel, saying that they support Israel in this war, with 62 voting for it and 3 voting against it. So huge margin of say. A question in the chat is there anything you specifically want us to say on the internet to change that narrative about Israel being the bully?
Not something specific, just the truth.
That's it. Pretty basic, just the truth, and it's unfortunate to see. Really a lot of falsehoods out there. If you want a little bit of levity, there's a show called Sderot, which is kind of like Israel's version of Saturday Night Live, and they did a great sketch the other day about the BBC interviewing Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, and like Yahya Sinwar was talking, you could hear a baby crying in the background. The BBC person was saying, "Is that a baby?" And he says, "Yes, it's an Israeli baby that we captured, and and it won't stop crying. It's been like this for a month. I can't sleep." And the BBC host is like, "So what I'm hearing you say is that this Israeli baby is torturing you with sleep deprivation." And he's like, "Exactly," and stuff like that. I mean, so it's good to find humor in all of this, but at the same time, it that is like what it feels like reading social media and also the press. Um, uh, so something, by the way, I mean, so before the war, what Sderot is like. I mean, because the only thing that we really ever know about Sderot is that there's a lot of rockets. Why would somebody live in Sderot? What's it like as a town?
Someone that go there, when you get in and you meet the people, you know you want to stay. It's like big family. You can go to someone that lives far away in the city and you know them like a family.
Something that somebody said to me today, because the question that I get asked a lot is like, no offense, but why would anybody live there? Like, why are you living there? And when there's all these rockets uh, and something like 50-60% of the children growing up in Sderot have PTSD, and they built in Sderot an underground playground because of all the rockets. Like, that's not normal. And what today they said to me was, don't blame us for that. Like, would you guys accept in the United States if there was a town anywhere in the United States that you couldn't live because you have a neighbor that is committed to your destruction? Would we tolerate that at all? don't blame us. It's important that we are there. It's important that we're present in the South. Are there any other questions for Adas?
I have a question.
Please.
I used to be 15, and not too long ago, Hadassah. I'm Mariah. I think you're terrific. You're beautiful too, Yafa. But here's my question. I love music. I love rock music. I had earphones, on my head. Were you able to bring your music with you, an iPod or anything, so you can have your music?
I have my phone here and headphones. That's basically all I need for music.
Because if you need that sort of thing, tell Rabbi Sam if you need, your music. Let him know that, because I'll find a way to get you more music.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Yisrael. Hi.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi there. I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and having this encounter with us. You are such a courageous young woman, and at 15, I'm just astounded at your maturity and your presence of mind to be able to share with us. It's been very meaningful having you. And unlike the previous caller, I don't remember being 15, but I do remember having a wonderful son. And I just want to thank you so much. And you are in my prayers. I live in New Mexico, and I share with others about Israel, and I advocate for Israel. Israel is not forgotten in New Mexico, and you will continue to be in my prayers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let me just add really quick. This is Mike Maurer. I'm from the governor's office in Utah. I'm not Jewish. I'm Christian, but I want you to know you have, as the rabbi mentioned with our resolution, overwhelming support in Utah. People have not forgotten what happened a month ago, and there's solid support throughout our state for you. So please share that message. That sometimes it doesn't come through, but we're huge fans of Israel. It's the only democracy, only fully functioning democracy in the Middle East. So we love and pray for you and support. We're a Republican state. President Biden's a Democrat, but we're united together in saying we want to continue support and aid for Israel. So thanks for being there, and thanks for being an Israeli citizen.
Thank you.
And that's you. What are your plans for the future? Do you want to be in the? Are you going to go into the army someday? Do you want? Of course. Does this make you want to join the army? Or said, I want to join the army more. And by the way, we're seeing a lot of Christian Arabs in Israel joining the army right now too. They see Hamas. They recognize that Hamas is ISIS, the same thing basically, and that just as Hamas, oops, I think I lost my connection. 1 second, and I'll let you go. Sorry, I'm taking a ton of your time.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Nobody else.